Hello, everybody. I'm Julieanne Ehre. I'm the director of Pivot Arts, and we have moved the 2020 Pivot Arts Festival into a virtual space. We'll have events launching there at pivotarts.org/festival starting on June 5th. And I'm here today with two of the artists, Drew Paryzer and Seth Bockley. Hey, guys.
Hey, hello.
So excited to chat with you today. Drew and Seth have created an online puzzling experience called Superfluxus. And you may recognize Seth Bockley created the show Gilgamesh for the 2019 Pivot Arts Festival. He's a frequent collaborator with us and is a director and writer, playwright, frequently of literary adaptations. And Drew is based in New Mexico, and he is a playwright and also an interactive storyteller. And I'm wondering, can we start with that, Drew? What do you mean by interactive storyteller?
Sure. I mean, for me, it's any kind of story narrative experience in which audience members are given the agency and the right to help influence how the story progresses. So for me, that has ranged from, for a year and a half, I was a member of the narrative team at Meow Wolf, which makes large-scale interactive themed entertainment experiences. We have one in they have one in Santa Fe, and they're also going to be building ones in Vegas and Denver in the coming years. So that is very much like an in-person, like immersive, like exhibit style experience where you can wander and kind of pick up story elements as you go. I think it ranges from that to more of the kind of experience that Seth and I are making right now, which is I've had some experience working in like digital storytelling in which you have kind of game experience where you, as the player character, are given choices to navigate through branching experiences and essentially feel yourself as like a character with agency within like a story world. So that's how I define interactive storytelling.
And this Superfluxus was originally going to be an escape room type live experience. You guys have super quickly adapted in the last couple of months to moving it into an online space. Seth, can you start out with just telling us a little bit like what was the original concept and how did your collaboration start?
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have found Drew at the moment that I found him. I was really interested in interactive and immersive storytelling as created by theater makers, but for new audiences. And I met Drew at the Playwright Center where I was working as a dramaturg for his new play. And afterwards, we got to talking and started talking more about installation art, virtual reality, video games, and I realized that Drew had this whole other facet to his work, this interactive and immersive storytelling. And I just kind of spontaneously pitched Drew on, let's make a sci-fi escape room that's really psychedelic and wild and genuinely mind-bending, and a little bit of an homage to like 90s video games like Myst or some of those kind of poetic, mysterious video game landscapes. I said, look, could we do that live? That was my provocation. This is something I like.
Did you say, by the way, my name is Seth?
No, yeah. I like to do this when I meet new people, because I like to provoke them with these kinds of large questions. And I don't know, it turned out that Drew was up for those kind of, up for the deep dive. And so we started reading a bunch of science fiction. I was really interested in Philip K. Dick, who I love for his mind-bending twists and psychedelic dimensions, and compiling what excited us about both the worlds of science fiction and about the dynamics of escape rooms and games where you can win or lose, and where you have to play live with a team of people to succeed. I'm really interested in the teamwork aspect of escape rooms. So that is actually where we started. And then along the way, prior to the pandemic, we were making a lot of progress building a storyline that could be accomplished this way, with groups of people moving through a space, not necessarily stuck in a room like you might imagine in a traditional escape room, but really moving through spaces where there's some mystery, there's a sense of challenge and adventure, there's a kind of outer space adventure flavor to the whole thing, where you have to defeat a monster or overcome some evil force. And that just felt like we were on the right path. And then as we were developing that, the pandemic hit, and it really altered our trajectory completely.
Yeah, now you guys are both theater artists, so how is your approach different? Let's just stick with the live experience for a second. Assuming that this will, again, of course, become a live experience. We will not be living like this forever. Knock on wood. What, what will that live experience, how will it be different as a kind of escape room genre, given that you're theater artists and not sort of just event planners or whatnot?
I think one thing that I've really appreciated about this process that Seth brought into it very early is that everything that we've discussed as being kind of an interactive component or a puzzling component, we worked really hard to like dramaturgically tie it to like story elements that we started with this, like what Seth was talking about, this kind of like mind bending world. And we've really worked hard to be like, what are, like, if we are using interactive immersive elements, like how are they progressing the story, how are they moving the audience's perception of how things are going, and like really tracking it as if they were characters in like a more linear experience, so I think that really is a testament to the fact that we are both theater makers and writers, that we have been aiming from the beginning for an immersive experience, and for the live experience, and also for the digital experience, to like have there be a sort of catharsis that happens within like the story world, and like a flow into shape, and I think that maybe differentiates from some other kind of escape room type of experiences where the story is maybe kind of a line that the puzzles are kind of hung on, that like maybe is not as essential as the actual act of doing the puzzles. So.
Yeah, Seth, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, we talk about narrative depth a lot, and I think that is because we are theater makers, and we think of live performance as a literary medium, among other things, and we're looking for that kind of catharsis that can come from a deep dive into a narrative where you care deeply about characters, and you're both hooked into a narrative, not just because you might win or lose a kind of game, but because you come to believe in the stakes of the world and care deeply about the people that inhabit that world. I think we really bring that playwriting kind of world building where we want the audience to care deeply and invest emotionally. And I also talked earlier about the feeling of poetry. I think the other thing that we bring as theater makers, I think, is a sense of imagination and whimsy, and a kind of literary quality that I think is in a lot of the plays that I love, also in a lot of the video games that I love. That sense of surprise, that sense of grace that can come in a kind of physical theater approach, and the kind of visual theater and multimedia work that I like to do on stage. We want to translate that to this kind of immersive experience that, again, is not just linear, trying to get through door B to puzzle C to locked treasure chest D, but instead taking you on a kind of poetic and like literary experience.
Yeah, it sounds like a great combination of some of these escape rooms, a la Sleep No More, and Then She Fell, and some of these big immersive theatrical experiences which have been so popular. Tell me a little bit more. If I'm gonna start to sit down at my computer, play Superfluxus in early June, what is that experience gonna be for me?
Well, we've had a lot of fun, and been incredibly fortunate to have the team that we have. We have an amazing team of actors that were assembled to portray the initial primary roles, and we've since added to that because we've fleshed out the world of characters that Drew has created. But we're especially, I think, blessed to have this design team who have jumped into online and web design. And this, I just can't overstate enough what a big jump this is for them. For example, Melissa Schlesinger, who we had engaged to create puzzles, has now been doing graphic design. incredible graphic design. Tony Churchill, who we engaged to create video that we were imagining would be played inside of the workshop experience at as part of the Pivot Arts Festival in person, is now all going into a web application, and there's a huge amount of it. And there's also an amazing sound designer, Hannah, and our incredible web designer, Nick Keenan, who has really created the whole back end of it. So I just want to shout out to them briefly. But when you log on, your question, what will you experience? You'll experience something that's very much a point and click adventure. And I use the phrase point and click with great affection, meaning a kind of throwback video game where you're presented with options like, do I go left, do I go right? And do I open this door? Do I talk to this person? And that's all been formatted into this very clean and quite austere and lovely graphic interface that will change and deepen and get weirder and more beautiful as the story unfolds. And as you go forward, there's a lot of text you'll read that'll communicate what's going on, and then you'll also see videos of actors in character who have all been taped in their own apartments, in their own houses, and then through the magic of video editing made to be somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to echo just what you said about kudos to all of you for moving this so incredibly quickly into an online space. I've been part of production meetings and have just been really amazed by your team. Well, let me just close out with, you are in your apartment, your house, you can have a virtual Zoom beer with really anybody in the world right now. Who would you choose? Joel.
Living or dead or living?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I'd want to Zoom with too many dead people, but sure, go for it. You're the interactive storyteller.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Good night. See you tomorrow.
I'm stumped as well.
I stumped you guys. Awesome.
I feel like my initial instinct is probably someone it would be if I could have a real life dinner with them, which would be like Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And so just someone who I think would be able to provide a silver lining in a larger way to me right now in all contexts at this moment.
Great. I'll take Michelle then. We'll do a kind of double date.
Great. There it is.
And we'll just see how that goes. I agree with you. Somebody to offer some hope would be great.
Hope is always a good thing. I am so excited about your project going live, Superfluxus, on June 11 at pivotarts.org/festival. And the festival itself is going to kick off June 5th, and it will stay up on our website through June 30th, so you can find it there. And Seth and Drew, absolute pleasure, as always, to spend time with you. Thanks for today, guys.
Likewise.
Okay. Thank you, Julieanne.
Thanks, Julieanne.